All right, welcome everyone back to the sacred space. We have Diego on, and this week was supposed to be a patron episode, but it is not because I have something that I need to say in public. This is serious, and particularly to our Spanish listeners. I don't know Spanish, so I can't watch Diego's content in Spanish, but I was pretty honestly disgusted to learn that he is in fact a Latin reactionary fascist. So I need to apologize for any trauma that we have caused by platforming someone like this. But I'm going to do right by everyone because he doesn't know I'm doing this. I'm holding him accountable. This is an ambush.
Accountability.
He's getting what's coming to him. So you come here onto an English show pretending to be a leftist because we're too ignorant to go check in what you've been doing on your Spanish channels. Well, the chickens are coming home to roost. So when you came on previously, this is how we figure out what you're up to. One of our patrons dropped their subscription and gave the reason that we had hosted a fascist. So wow. I did some investigating. I'm pretty aggrieved by this. What did you do? I'm sure you already know this, but you, quote, platformed a reactionary pseudo-socialist and fan of imperialism, Santiago Armecia, unquote. Now, this is, of course, absolutely unacceptable. We do not condone reactionary pseudo-socialists or imperialism on the Pill Pod. And now here I am platforming a platform of reactionary pseudo-socialist imperialism. So I need you, before you say anything, do you, sir,
condemn
fascism? Oh, look at that. Now you're already jumping ahead of me. So yes, I will ask you to condemn Hamas, followed by fascism. Can you please do your condemnations, sir?
So first, I do condemn fascism, but I applaud Hamas. I would like to take this opportunity with all my strength and all my powers to applaud Hamas to the best of my ability.
Wow.
That is absolutely morally abhorrent, repugnant.
Is that enough?
I don't know how we're going to continue this podcast. This is not going the way that I had pictured it in my head. I expected you to be a little bit more contrite, but this is not at all going how I thought. This is not how you are supposed to think, sir.
Yeah. Do you? It's insane. This is perfect. That's why I love talking to you guys. This is so good. So the issue is that now to participate in what is the illusion of liberal free market of ideas, the battle for ideas. To begin with, you have to first acknowledge the currently dominating God or theocratical structure. And once you have assumed all those presupposed notions that sustain your point of view, then you are welcome into the debate. So yes, hello, my name is Diego. I applaud Hamas, and I would like to speak about Marx, the true God.
Just to be respectful and to make sure we have our bases covered, could you also please apologize for any trauma that you've caused here in the past?
Yeah, but this is not my fault. I think people need to be castrated more. I think castration just was left out of the social spectrum, and social media today is allowing people to believe for too long that there's anima hidden in inanimated objects, and people are no longer castrated. And without castration, it's pretty impossible to have a conversation. So no, I do not apologize for trauma.
I'm not even listening to you. I can't hear anything you say. I'm deaf to you. I don't know how you sleep at night.
I'm not.
You're not apologizing. You're not contrite.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Is that good enough?
There we have it, folks. We have it. He said, "I am sorry."
Wait, but is this true? By the way, did we actually have a patron who said that, or did you make that up?
No, that's all facts. That's all.
That's true. Happened? Wow. That's insane.
Wow. So someone unsubscribed because we platformed Diego because he platformed this. Are you serious? That's actually true.
Yeah, but I looked up this guy. This guy, and he's a PhD in economics who writes books about Marx. So I can't read them.
The guy is fucking brilliant. The guy is like super, super smart. He's a very good friend of mine. He's part of the Gustavo Bueno School. He's part of a movement called political materialism. So they are like a post-Marxists, if you want to say that. They are as close as you can get to a true post-Marxist reading of ontology.
We're talking about pseudo-socialist reactionary Santiago Armacia, by the way. But when you say post-Marxist, post-left, is that part of this thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely post-left.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
It means that, well, I was following the episodes, and I think we can even start by going there. We have this notion that now this totem that unifies our ability to gather and have a conversation is this notion of free will, right? So it's something shared by the liberal ontology and description of the individual, is that we are free, we are reasonable. So it's the victory of supposedly being modern. So supposedly we arrive at modernism, we are modern. And the only way we can have that discussion, and the only people invited to the conversation, have to a priori agree on the notion that we are free, reasonable, human, and modern bullshit. Once you agree to that, then you're invited into the conversation, right? Then we can talk about if democracy is functional enough, if we need more liberal institutions, if what justice is equal to is to more democracy, then you're invited to the conversation. But being post-left for us, and I think this is a position I hold myself, it's the new reading of Marx in a way that we have to go back to the material reading and taking away the eschatological liberalism that was implied into the neo-Marxism of the 21st century, into this seduction of liberalism and, like downplaying Marxism into being something about equality and social justice, the watered down version of Marxism that became social democracy. We have to go back into real materialism and embrace the fact that we are subjects under or overdetermined by material conditions that are before us, and even the notion of freedom has to be put into challenge.
Phew. Well, I got to say that it's a relief to hear, because that is not what post-left means in the Anglosphere. I was a little afraid when you said yes, because our post-left means I was a leftist, and then Bernie didn't work out. So now I'm going to do a bit of race science and talk about the transgender conspiracy to replace real women.
So you become a reactionary.
Well, there's also post-Marxists like, Laclau and Mouffe. They also call themselves post-Marxists. It's
but we already had that discussion. They didn't understand Marx. Yeah.
So this is Santiago Armacia. Why do people hate him, and why are people sending you anthrax?
Because the death threats and the hate for Santiago is separated, actually. So the hate for Santiago is because the guy advocates for Iberophonic geopolitical bloc. So his political position.
Really? So after all this time, Western civilization is in decay, and we're going to point to the problem, which is the Treaty of Tordesillas. Sorry, but seriously, who's in this bloc?
All Spanish and Portuguese-speaking countries need to align politically in order to have enough geopolitical power to participate in the new multipolar world.
Really? So it's transatlantic and includes like old Iberia as well?
Yeah, it's transatlantic because of only a few countries like Spain, Capo Verde, and South Africa, which are Spanish and Portuguese-speaking countries on the other side of the ocean. But what people misunderstand about Santiago and about the Iberophonic movement is that they say, Santiago is a reactionary and a fascist because he wants to go back to the Spanish Empire. But in his book about the Iberophonic bloc, he says that the heart of the Iberophonic bloc is probably going to be either Brazil, Colombia, or Mexico. Spanish doesn't have the power anymore to be the center of a geopolitical bloc. The only country with the true power right now is Brazil. And actually, that's the reason why the French government was lobbying Brazil not to teach Spanish in schools. And that's why, in a way, the CIA is so interested into having Javier Milei as a president of Argentina to avoid the river connection, which will create a free flow of commerce between South America.
Well, that's for sure going to get people's nationalist spidey senses tingling when you call it an Iberophonic empire, like Heidegger's "the language is the true inner spirit of the people" type shit.
Well, it does, because it does sound a bit like the Dugan stuff with Eurasianism, right? Like Dugan is all about like bringing together Eurasianism. So do people see a link there?
So it's not only language; it's more about having shared interests and shared historical material conditions, let's to say something. Because in a way, you see, like most of the countries I mentioned, Spanish-speaking and Portuguese-speaking, we don't only share language as a coincidence. Like they share like a basis of religion, a shares of values, the way their story was constituted, the historical period in which we acquainted or we achieved freedom from the traditional colonial period. So there's a series of material conditions that provide this. And I think it's also in part very much convenient, to your point, Pils, because it's not justified by reason or logic. It's justified by necessity and convenience, up front and not most.
And then you have like a foothold in Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
For the inevitable takeover there.
Yeah, I think Spain, and probably Santiago will be mad at me for saying this, but I think Spain, it's a convenient ally. It's not necessary, but it's a convenient ally. It's just like for the US having Israel. It's just like having bases in the Middle East. Like for us, if we create an Iberophonic bloc, I would love to have military bases in Spain, so we have a foothold in Europe. It's completely
convenient. Wait, what's the difference between, because you made a distinction between convenience and like rational interests.
Yep.
And like, so what do you see as
one is normative and the other is positive.
Okay, so you think that convenience is just positive as opposed to like, so you see like rational interest as being based on some normative idea.
Yep.
And then you kind of see convenience as more in line with like a materialist reading because it's just like, well, it happens to be, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's true power struggle. It's dialectical of classes, empires, and states. One is normative and the other is positive, like in a very, very simplistic Kantian distinction.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, so why do people hate him though? So you kind of gave an account of what he buys into.
Yeah, but people hate him because people think that he's promoting a movement that is back to Spanish colonialism.
Okay, right. You did say that. Okay.
So alongside Duginism and BRICS, this is another possible pole in a multipolar movement.
It's a movement against the Balkanization of South America. That's it. Because like our stupid small Balkanized countries in South America are so easy to manipulate. It's insane. We have suffered the little number of 56 coups d'etats in the past 70 years, which is awesome. Thank you, Obama.
Yeah, it's true. No, you're right about that. I mean, I think Latin America is kind of a mess. My dad obsessively like keeps up with Latin American politics lately, and
your dad is featuring strongly on the Pill Pod the last couple of years. Is it because he's retired? He's just bored.
He just watches cable news and like watches YouTubers about and watches like YouTubers about Latin American Chile. And like, yeah, he just complains about the left all the time, the left in Chile and the left everywhere. And
I'm sorry about your country, but Chile became like a neoliberal hellhole. What the fuck, man?
Of course. Yeah, of course. It's been like that for a long time, I think. Yeah. But
thanks,
then,
Chicago boys.
My dad just has this critique about, I don't know if, did you follow much like the constitutional struggle in Chile when it was happening or not really?
Barely. I was much more interested about Elden Ring and the new DLC.
Fair enough. Yeah. But it did seem like they were kind of trying to insert stuff into that constitution that were like symbolic at best.
Dude, so for me, democratic fundamentalism is like Mac users in Umberto Eco's reading.
Yeah. I like Macs. I use one.
What do you think, Pils?
Yeah, a patron sent that to me. I won't say her name because now that you're here, I don't want to put her in physical danger. But Umberto Eco on the metaphysics of DOS users versus Mac users versus...
We can even read it. It's like 3 paragraphs.
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Here's the 3 paragraphs. The fact is that the world is divided between... This is 1996, by the way, so dated references. The fact is that the world is divided between users of the Macintosh computer and users of the MS-DOS compatible computers. Why is he still using DOS in 96, though? That's...
Because it's the operating system behind Windows.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am firmly...
96 DOS was definitely still a thing.
Windows is the name of the interface. The operating system is the OS.
Windows 95 was the big first like mass
but that was this was only a year after that, right? So they're like DOS was still played a very important role, and people would always still go back to DOS even though they had Windows.
Well, that was the second Windows after Windows. Anyway, 95. Okay. I am firmly of the opinion that the Macintosh is Catholic and that DOS is Protestant. Indeed, the Macintosh is counter-reformist and has been influenced by the Ratio Studiorum of the Jesuits. It is cheerful, friendly, conciliatory. It tells the faithful how they must proceed step by step to reach, if not the kingdom of heaven, the moment in which their document is printed. It is catechistic. The essence of revelation is dealt with via the simple formulae and sumptuous icons. Everyone has the right to salvation. DOS is Protestant or even Calvinistic. It allows free interpretation of Scripture, demands difficult personal decisions, imposes a subtle hermeneutics upon the user, and takes for granted the idea that not all can reach salvation. To make the system work, you need to interpret the program yourself. A long way from the Baroque community of revelers, the user is closed within the loneliness of his own inner torment. You may object that with the passage to Windows, oh, there we go, the DOS universe has come to resemble more closely the counter-reformist tolerance of the Macintosh. It's true. Windows represents an Anglican-style schism, big ceremonies in the cathedral, but there is always the possibility of a return to DOS to change things in accordance with bizarre decisions. And machine code, which lies beneath both systems, or environments, if you prefer, that is to do with the Old Testament, and is Talmudic and Kabbalistic. So I guess if you want to update the reference, the Linux users are the true Calvinists today. There's very little ornamentation or graphics. It's much less ostentatious, of course, but that depends on your distribution. And it's a lot of like individual work. The individual's cloistered, solitary, like the Calvinists working away on their inner life, hoping they see the kingdom.
Open sourced.
Yeah, open sourced, meaning everyone is their own priest. But what did you say was Apple today?
It's democratic fundamentalism.
Yeah, everyone gets the nice things. It's very, it looks very freeing aesthetically because you all get to play around with the nice icons, very carefully crafted by expert designers in California. But fundamentally, it's extremely rigid.
Negative freedom. The notion of negative freedom is perfectly in sync with the notion of Mac being as a system that you're, in a way, guided by the illusion of freedom to achieve a goal that everybody deserves and eventually will get. But you're not allowed to truly question the fundamental logic of the system operating behind it or underneath it.
So Linux is actually the more individualistic option.
It will be like anarchism, right?
Yeah, very.
Linux is like anarchism.
It's politically unpopular. It will never reach the mainstream, but it does all the jobs the best. Is that what you're saying? Anarchists are?
So it just requires so much fucking groundwork. Like it just requires so much fucking like organizing. Like you spend every day, all day long in bureaucracy. Like that's the dream of the anarchists. You know, like we have to get together between everybody in the community to decide whether or not we're gonna turn on the lights on the streets. Oh, great! Another 5-hour meeting to decide that.
That's true.
That's Linux. You have to devote your life to Linux.
Linux, you need a whole third monitor just to have the list of commands at all times available to you.
Freedom is an endless meeting.
Yeah, it's an endless meeting. Exactly. It's like a Kafkian nightmare. It's either a dream or if you're a sadomasochist, it's fucking awesome. You're every day like discussing stupid little details, and your life is dedicating to getting something redder in order for life to take place.
And they just gather on little message board echo chambers where the primary purpose is just to complain about how lame the mainstream and everyone else is. So this is exactly anarcho-syndicalism.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's Windows then?
Everyone else. No.
Yeah, Windows. What is Windows?
Windows is for the masses. Apple is for like Democrat Party pundits.
I almost feel like Mac is like social democracy. And then like Windows is like American style democracy.
Mac is embodied in the person of Ezra Klein.
Yeah.
Ezra. Yeah.
Anyway.
sounds pretty accurate, huh?
Perfect. We don't need to touch it. Everyone applauded. Anyway, we never got to why everyone hates you now and why you're getting death threats.
Yeah.
Man.
What's the most common hate these days?
And this might answer it a little bit. The listeners probably don't know this, but in case you're unaware, Diego has interviewed both Maduro and RFK in the last month. So why don't you start off with which of those was the worst experience?
Oh my God. RFK, no doubt. I'm sorry to say, RFK, no doubt. Dude, what was that? And I was re-invited. Did I tell you guys that?
Yeah, did you go
Wait,
back?
he thought
No,
that,
I have to go back. I'm gonna
He thought
I'm
that
gonna
that
go
went
back again.
well?
Like sorry?
he thought that went well.
Yeah, he thought that went great. You saw the question I asked him, right? You guys saw the questions?
Which one?
I asked him about American interference in Latin America and their responsibility on migration, which was like, dude, like, I don't know how you can take this well. And then I asked him how more capitalism is going to solve big capital monopolies. Like he was
And what did he
unable
say?
to answer as well.
He was
And
unable to answer?
Yeah, even worse. And then I don't even remember the third question. But the three questions were like this is insanity. But you know, politics are great at not responding. It's insane.
Right. So he didn't really respond substantively, you felt.
No, not really. I mean,
And
he goes into the fringes. You know how it works. They arrive to interviews with an agenda, and then the conversation goes to the way they are supposed to speak and to the topics they are supposed to speak.
And what was the event? It was like some kind of a town hall for Latin American Americans, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, so they invited me. Like I popped up somewhere, and I think that's part of the hate towards myself as well. I popped up somewhere as one of the top Latin American political opinion leaders. So now I'm getting invited to all these places, which I truly regret. Which made me immediately go back to video games.
So was this sorry? So this was, you came up as one of the most popular Latin American commentators in terms of U.S. Latin American listeners, or just overall?
Well, U.S.
Maybe
is my
both.
second country. It's the number 2 country in terms of size of audience. The U.S. is my second country. So it's Mexico, U.S., and then Venezuela. Actually, Colombia and Venezuela are pretty close together.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why.
Why did you get so much hate specifically then for RFK? No one cares about him, do they?
No, nobody cared really about the interview for RFK. The hate that I really got was for interviewing Maduro. That's why.
Oh,
Let's talk about that. How did you feel?
I didn't watch it because I don't understand it. But what was the vibes?
Did you interview Maduro twice?
Yeah, so I did 2 interviews. I did it was weird because he invited me into his podcast. Okay, that was the first thing, which was weird because I was interviewed by him. It was a little bit of a back and forward, but mostly it was him asking and me responding, which was strange but entertaining.
What the fuck? World leaders are now podcasters. That's
Yeah,
Dude,
his own
didn't you
podcast.
see
It's so
Trump?
weird.
Trump went with the guy that the Andrew Tate ass sniffler. What's his fucking name?
ass sniffler.
Yeah, the guy that sniffed the chair in where Andrew Tate sat down is now one of the top streamers in the U.S. And Trump was in his stream.
Adin Ross.
Adin Ross, exactly, that idiot.
Yeah.
Wait, that
idiot.
the NBA guy.
Is he an NBA guy?
No, he plays
No.
he plays NBA.
No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't play NBA 2K or whatever.
Isn't he like a scrawny little bitch kid? I don't know. Isn't he?
No, not real NBA, the video game.
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe. Yeah.
Maybe,
Maybe a video game. Yeah.
I think he played with LeBron James's kid.
Exactly, that guy. And now Kamala Harris is gonna go with.
Wait, he sniffed Andrew Tate's ass?
Well, he's not literally, bro. Come on,
No.
fucking wake up here. We're talking metaphorical here.
No, he did sniff the chair in which Andrew Tate was sitting down. There's a video.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Dude, you're underestimating the society of spectacle by a million miles.
I need that's one of my favorite clips we've ever had. He sniffed the chair that he was sitting in.
Yeah, they were having a conversation, and Andrew Tate suddenly stood up and went out, and then the guy went and sniffed the chair in which Andrew Tate was sitting down.
Jesus.
Oh, this is the guy who also got Andrew Tate caught because he said he was going to leave the country. Is that the same guy? Oh my!
That's the same guy.
That guy interviewed Trump.
Exactly. Trump went into his stream for like an hour almost. They even danced at the end. The guy gave to Trump a Cybertruck wrapped in the photo of Trump getting shot.
No.
It was a sublime moment
What?
of our generation.
This is beautiful. This is like
It is.
This is perfect hell.
Exactly.
It's like rosy pink colored hell. I love that all that. Wait. Oh my god. This is
Even
all,
everything
that's
about
amazing.
this story is beautiful.
There's
That's
too many events
amazing.
happening to keep up.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, they're dancing. They're dancing
Describe
to
it, please.
YMCA.
Pills, describe it to us as a first impression. I want to get a true, honest reaction from
Yeah,
Pills,
yeah.
not
Okay.
an elaborated script
This
based
is-
on 20 books.
I'm just finding all the gifts. He's dancing the YMCA next to
the dual masturbating rhythm. He's doing the double masturbation dance.
Double dicks in both of their face, and there's a Cybertruck behind them that has Trump's face on it.
To add to that, I watched a clip of I've been watching, I don't know why, but Piers Morgan's YouTube show sometimes, and Piers Morgan described Trump as having pretty nifty moves.
Dude, it's too fun. It's too funny not to laugh. It's a pity. It's a pity. Life is a tragedy. You can choose to laugh of it. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this
First
is like
tragedy, then as farce.
You know the situationist dictum that what is good appears.
Yeah, and what appears good.
This is good.
Yeah.
Trump is standing like he's standing like with his legs spread apart like a tripod, and his hair's blowing in his face, and Adin Ross is just standing there like giggling in front of the truck.
It's unbelievable.
Isn't it sublime?
It is sublime. I'm the presidential candidate, also the president, former president, dancing worse than I can say in words to convey this image next to this 20-year-old dipshit in front of the most retarded meme of a vehicle designed by another one of the most asinine people to have ever lived, and it's all in one picture at the same time.
Isn't it insane? And
it's a perfect semiotic
the Cybertruck
tumor of
the
reality.
Cybertruck is wrapped into a photo of the shooting. Pills. It's too perfect. It's way too perfect. Everything into this is like simulation upon simulation. Reality, it's long lost. Okay. That's why I'm hated, because I'm talking about objects and materiality. People don't care about me. That's why people want to kill me.
Why is the truck there? Is that Adin's truck?
He's given it to Trump as a gift.
He's giving Trump a car with a picture of him getting shot on it, basically.
Exactly.
Oh my God. We need to get the semioticians on this.
I wasn't. Did you see the first
did this
time
happen like yesterday or something?
It was very recently. Yeah.
It's an Elon, Ross affirmed. Shout out to Mr. Musk. That's beautiful, Trump said. I agree, Mr. Former President. What is good appears.
What appears is good.
Then they then they sang carpool karaoke together.
Yeah. They went into the car, and I think Trump chose the song YMCA, which they sang together.
He chose it?
Wow. Yeah, he chose it. And then he was like talking about the importance of these groups in his history. And then they went back out of the truck and they danced.
I feel ambushed right now. I want to break down these signs individually, assemble them.
Over ambushed.
I need to assemble them into a graph.
The first time
Adin Ross's guests have included white nationalist Nick Fuentes. I mean, that's no big deal because Trump had dinner with him. Accused human trafficker Andrew Tate, and now Donald Trump. Oh
my God. It's exactly like going to Starbucks and asking for a pumpkin spice latte macchiato, which is based on the flavor of a pumpkin spice cake, which is based on the flavor of pumpkin, which nobody has ever eaten before in this generation.
We eat pumpkin pie.
No, you eat pumpkin pie, but you don't eat pumpkin.
This is like, I went to England. Is that a layover? And the subway there also has Southwest sauce. And you're like, why the hell do you have Southwest sauce? Southwest of what? This is fucking London.
It's like they stopped. It's like they stopped caring about the thing that they talk about in Pulp Fiction, right? Because in Pulp Fiction in the 90s, they're like, what do they call a quarter pounder in France, right? They call it because
Mac Royale with cheese.
Mac Royale with cheese. But then I guess they just stopped. They're like, we'll keep calling it Southwest sauce, even though it doesn't make any fucking sense where you are.
The territory never existed. There's a story by José Luis Borges, which is a great writer from Argentina, about a king that gets completely obsessed with his empire, and he hires all the map makers from the kingdom to draw a map. But in the end, the map has more information than the territory. So they can no longer tell the difference, and they're more worried about the map than the territory itself. This is where we are.
Right.
Diego, I don't know where the fuck you think you are, but yes, we and 90% of our listener base has read chapter 1 of Simulacra and Simulation.
So, exactly. I was going to say the first time I came across or like became aware of Adin Ross's existence was in like this short clip that came up on my Twitter. I don't know if you can see it in the chat there, Pills, but I'd love it. It's only like 50 seconds. I'd love you to just play it for us all right now.
If I play it from here,
It'll record on the Zoom audio, won't it?
oh, we'll just have to watch it separate. I'll put it in the recording, the final recording.
Yeah, you can share your screen and then just play it on Zoom.
It's called Adin Ross is Literate.
Yeah,
I think I know what you're referring to.
What does a fascist mean? It means you are a far right authorization on ultra-analyst. Oh my God, ultra-analyst political ideology movement characterized by dictator leadership, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition. So I don't know what that means, bro. I swear to God, I don't know what the fuck a fascism is. I don't know what the fuck that is. Benito Mussolini and Giviante Gentile and Jason Stanley. Like, who the fuck are these people, bro? Never heard of my fucking life. What is an example of a fascist?
Oh my God. I need some water. Oh my God.
Benito Mussolini.
Dude, I have my doubts if he ever like came out of like elementary school, to be honest with you.
yeah, it's a pretty good clip. I was like, wow, this is the kid that Zoomers are loving. Like, holy shit.
This is the kid that is platforming the next potential president of the United States, huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
He reads ultra now. Okay.
Ultra
Ultra-analysm.
Ultra nationalist is ultra analist.
Yeah. And you know what makes me laugh is that people like really believe it's important to debate these people and defeat them in the marketplace of ideas. It's like, what the fuck are you thinking? Are you guys fucking stupid? Like, do you want to really spend your time talking to a kid that cannot even read the words? It's like, I mean, I think it's a better investment of my time to read Borges to my 7-year-old.
Benito Mussolini.
He calls it a fascist too. I have no idea what the fuck a fascism is.
It's like Sonic's the Hedgehog, like super fast.
Yeah. So this is, I came across that video maybe like a year ago and I was like, this is apparent. I was like, oh, who the hell is this? And then I realized I was like, apparently this guy's one of the most popular, like, I don't know, TikTokers or YouTubers or whatever with Gen Zers. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of scary. Fuck.
Oh my
Fun
Lord.
stuff, huh?
I'm sorry. I love that guy. Yeah. I'm going to bat for that guy.
You were crying. You thought
I know people say this all the time, but I think that might be the single individual funniest video I have ever seen in my entire life. Autocracy?
Autocracy. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
So are you an ultra analyst?
Ultra analyst.
He's like a far right authorization.
I've lost myself.
It was
I'm
so
done.
fun.
I'd love to hear more about talking to Maduro. Like, what were are you supposed to talk to him again? I think, or no, you did twice already. You did twice already.
Yeah, I did twice already. I'm supposed to talk to the next presidents that are having line or candidates. Is I'm supposed to talk to RFK again, to Robert Kennedy again. There's another town hall, but this one is, I think it's going to be either in Miami or in Los Angeles. Not sure yet. And then I'm supposed to talk to Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador.
Oh, right. Oh, he's like, isn't he like pretty authoritarian or no?
I don't even know what those words mean anymore. Unless you talk to me about ultra analism, I don't know what authoritarian means anymore.
Well, I think that he's like, I know that he is like really tough on crime, to be more concrete, like very tough on crime policies. And I think like,
well, I've seen the U.S. beating people to a pulp and run them over with cop cars. So I don't know what authoritarian means anymore.
Well, okay. Well, what I mean specifically is like he has, I would say, just killed a lot of criminal cartels without due process of law. But like, I don't know, maybe that's.
I mean,
That might
also
not be
the
a bad
U.S.
thing.
The U.S. has implanted meth addiction and opioid addiction as a way to control a full race versus another race, which is it's pretty authoritarian to me. Like, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to be a jackass, Victor. It's nothing against you. Don't take it in the wrong way. But this is my current problem with having these discussions within, because it takes like a certain liberal framework, which is like the religion you guys have been talking about. So in order to establish these discussions, you have to already a priori like assume a certain number of positions, and then within those positions you're allowed to talk, about the nuances of who's more authoritarian, who's the real bad guy at the moment. And like I've given up. Like I'm totally fed up. Like
I'm not saying anything about who I think is bad, right? Like, so I agreed with your initial one when you're like, well, I don't know what authoritarian means. And I was like, okay, well, let me be more specific. Like, he's rounding up people who are accused of being like in the criminal cartels and is killing them. Right. So like, there's no ideology there. It's just like a statement of fact. Right. So like, is he doing that? Like, if he's not, and I agree, like, so to me, that's just like being concrete. It's not necessarily, and I'm not even saying I'm not even saying that's necessarily a bad thing. Right. Like, I could hear an argument being like, well, maybe El Salvador was so out of control, being controlled by like that, like maybe in that context, it made sense to do that, right? So I haven't said anything about what I think about it.
So I agree. I'll take it as an iron statement versus a strawman attitude.
Yeah.
So the best way to respond to that argument, or to respond to the question, is to say, yes, I think El Salvador was completely fucked due to the fact that Salvas and the gangs were funded and trained in New York by the CIA, and this is openly documented. And then they were sent as a counter-insurgenary movement in El Salvador, and the country was completely dominated by crime. So I don't think he had much of a choice. Like, you cannot fix the country with direct democracy and respect for human rights, while at the fringes of the urban centers and high class areas of the city and the state, people were living in an absolutely nightmare. So he had to run over human rights in order to establish a minimum of law in order to develop the country. I think that would be the very cold materialist political reading. Yeah,
that seems fair enough. And this is actually something where my dad would be happy to hear you saying that, because my dad will talk about Bukele and he'll be like, yeah, he did what's necessary. He did what's necessary to bring that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Probably my sarcasm was out of control before that.
No, well, fair enough. I mean, I'm sure you're just so used to talking to people who are coming from a place of like, like kind of a
bad faith,
like overly moralistic bad faith, right?
We got a fourth. Does your dad want a mic? He could just jump in here. He's back again.
What's his name? What's the name of your father? If you don't want to give it away,
Alex Brazzoni, Alejandro.
Alejandro, te mando un abrazo desde México. Yo sé que viste mi video y no te gustó porque dijiste que uso palabras complicadas y estaba tratando a la otra persona con demasiada caridad mental, pero igual te invito a mi podcast también.
Nice. I'll send him that clip, even if you don't keep it in. Maybe I'll send it to him, but you should keep it in.
We should keep it in. I don't know. Are you guys done with the geopolitics stuff? I don't know anything about that.
Well, I wanted to know more about his experience of talking to Maduro. Like, what did he think? I don't know. Like, are you okay? Are you comfortable giving us some earnest reactions? It's pretty unlikely he would listen to this. So, like, well, what did you think?
No, you have no idea. At the moment, people are like hunting me down with wild dogs. It's insane.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess they'll listen because you're on it. Yeah.
I've been getting death threats for like a month now.
Because of the Maduro stuff?
Yeah, for sure.
So what are they mad at you about primarily?
Can you tell our Anglo audience? So Maduro's prime minister, Presidente of Venezuela. Yeah. So who are the people specifically that are hunting you? Is it like a right-left thing or?
No, the opposition. Yeah, for sure, the opposition. Like the issue is that
the right-wing opposition to Maduro?
Correct. The Washington candidate, to be completely transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the opposition is like openly funded by the US. They ask for intervention. They're asking for more sanctions. The lady even sent a letter to Netanyahu asking Netanyahu to help intervene in Venezuela and even bomb Venezuela. Can you imagine? And I was brave enough to criticize and say, guys, be careful, because US interventions don't end up very nicely. I mean, we can name at least like 60 examples. So I'll be very much skeptic about receiving help from the US. And because of that, I'm supposed to disappear.
Well, don't get into any helicopters. Can we just go back to something you just said? What do you mean? Ask Israel to bomb Venezuela. Like they're a little busy at the moment, but this is a thing that happened.
Yeah, but there's a letter from the candidate, from the opposition candidate in Venezuela, asking Netanyahu to intervene in Venezuela. I mean,
Okay, I'm not really familiar with the local politics or the Latin American right, but is that as insane as it sounds?
It sounds totally insane.
It is insane.
And also just like, I feel skeptical that like Israel would ever even come close to being like, yeah, sure, we'll come intervene in Venezuela. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive.
What people have to think against materially, no? And I love that word. I'm all over for the objects. And I think I took a lot of this from you, Pills. Like I'm an object-oriented guy. Like I believe in the autonomy of objects and even the supremacy of objects. And
well, we're gonna get into some murky water because I'm not an object-oriented ontologist. I'm an object-oriented theorist.
Same here. I'm not a triple O guy. Yeah, same here. I'm not a triple O guy. But I do believe in let's say, the material heterodetermination on subjectivity. That will be properly saying my point of view right now. Materially heterodetermination of subjectivity. So what I'm saying with this is that
before we do the theory bit, could you also just explain if I'm an Anglophone Twitter Marxist, do I like Maduro? I know I like Chavez, but do I like Maduro or do I not like Maduro?
So I think the most convenient position right now in the internet, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys about the spiral of silence. I think the most convenient leftist position in this issue is to say both sides are bad.
So Maduro's not revolutionary enough and the other side's worse?
Yeah. I mean, I asked him in the interview, are you a socialist? And he said, no, not yet.
Seems
not
reasonable.
yet or not ever?
No, not yet. He said, I'm leaning towards that, but not yet. We're a social democracy.
I remember the clip that I saw, and I think you asked him something about, and then he like kind of went on a tangent and started talking about all the immigrants in Venezuela, and it was like pretty cringe. I don't know what. So what's his? Does he have positions on like immigration that some moralists would find controversial?
Wait,
or is he?
Who is trying to get into Venezuela right now?
Well, no, nobody. Like he's talking about the exodus of Venezuela, aren't you, Victor?
Oh, maybe that's what I was thinking of. Maybe that's
immigrants, not immigrants.
Immigrants.
Exactly,
yeah, right.
Exactly. I think that the official number is between 5 and 7 million people have left Venezuela. But you cannot simplify why they have left. And of course it's and you can say people left because it was getting horrible. Yes, of course, but why was it getting horrible? And then you get into the nuance of the relationship between, yes, there was an issue because they stayed for too long as a monoproductive economy. They were like relying solely on petroleum to sustain a social welfare state, which is unsustainable if you don't develop your productive forces. And it makes you very susceptible to sanctions. And the US was very smart. They saw it, that Chavez was the one doing that. He was providing a lot of wellness to the people by selling petroleum because they have pretty much infinite amounts of petroleum. So they use the sanctions to blockade that. And suddenly, because they didn't develop productive forces and not sufficient economic autonomy, they were sunk into misery. So people started to leave the country. And they blamed that. They created a huge psyop and saying that's the failure of socialism. They said, no, it's the problem of planned economies. You see, you try to plan the economy and you create a welfare state based on selling just one commodity, and now you're fucked. Just because we put 900 sanctions on you, your economy is so weak. And then people go out of the country, and it's normal. You develop your consciousness based on a reality that you're feeling misery because your country doesn't have the self-sustaining ability to provide welfare to the population.
Now it's Chavez who's blamed for that typically, or is Maduro just lumped in with him?
Yeah, but it's a continuation of the project, to be honest with you. The difference is that there are a lot of differences. We could go on about this for hours, but I think, and this is strange, people say that he's a dictator. And I mean, yeah, it depends on what you define as a dictator, which is strange. But most people wouldn't be able to define it. Just be very, very simplistic. Dictatorship is one person, one figure holds all the powers of state. Okay, people don't know this, but Venezuela has 5 powers. Not only legislativo, ejecutivo, and judicial, which is judiciary, legislative, and executive. So Venezuela has 5 powers. Beyond those 3, they have the popular power and the power of the press. because they have a Bolivarian legacy. And Simón Bolívar was one of the original anti-colonial thinkers and revolutionaries from South America that came up with the notion that there needed to be a fourth power in liberalism, which is the power of the people, which is, we know now, a metaphysical condition. There's no such thing as the will of the people. It's a completely metaphysical notion. It's very liberal. So in that sense, people don't understand that my critiques to Venezuela is that it's way too liberal. Like, I will be much harsher. Like, my critiques is liberalism in Venezuela.
And when you say there's 5 powers, those 5 powers, don't they apply to any state?
Yeah,
this
branches.
is not particular to Venezuela, right?
No, but they like, the opinion of the press is one of the powers that determines what happens to the country.
Yeah, like fourth estate. But so that
Like fourth estate,
you would
exactly.
say that applies to mostly anywhere, right?
Well, depends. I mean, what people will argue, and then of course I will agree to the critique, is that it's press really free. Of course not. We know because of Chomsky that whoever pays for the ink has a say in what is published, and there's a lot of very subtle mechanism that filters out truly subversive opinions that they end up in the fringes or not being listened to at all. This is why we connect back to this political theory of the spiral of silence.
All right. So Diego Ruzzarin is elected Presidente of Venezuela. You're saying you seize control of the press?
I would not take over the press. I would do like China did. Like my model at the moment, I'm very realistic. I have one shady example that I want to avoid as a political model, which is the US. And I have a very nice example, which I want to emulate and learn as much as I can from, which is China. So my notion is that we need to be realistic and adapt Marxism to currently concrete material problems within the region, and then adapt what we can and what we need, either by convenience or by reason, in order to formulate socialism with South American characteristics. That's my point of view. But you see, my critique of Venezuela is the excess of social democracy, fundamentalism, and liberalism. This is what I would love people to see. That what is failing in most countries in South America is democratic fundamentalism and liberalism.
Don't you think
sorry, I need you to then explain, because you have just been saying you're a dogmatic, radical materialist, and yet then you say that the 2 biggest problems for South America are theoretical schools or political conceptions. How do you square those?
I don't think it's philosophical. So that, the relationships of power and the natural autopoietic intention of capital that manifests itself through the commercial relationships of capitalists is what gives birth to institutions and what creates an ideology as a theology to justify the currently existing social relationships.
Okay. So if I'm to interpret your materialism here, which I don't think is inconsistent, by the way, but then you were saying that the problem of liberal individualism is that it is materially real, in that it takes shape in institutions, and those institutions are a product of, 19th century European organization of what? Values? Yes, values. So you're declaring that whether or not liberal ideals are real, and of course they are not, but in Latin America, they are being exogenously reproduced through trying to replicate the success that they've had in the USA?
Yes. We were never modern. Liberalism is the current dominant theology.
So the cult of the individual.
Yeah.
So because you said something interesting about how you want to make sure that you don't emulate the United States, but you want to emulate more like China. Like, where do you see Europe kind of in between those two things? Like, do you just see Europe as just America, basically?
Yeah.
Or okay. So you don't see a difference?
Mostly fucked. I mean, they're too close
fucked
to the US.
Way, though?
They're going to be the first one to be sacrificed in the name of the capital God that is worshipped in America. So the way it works is that, I think it was Kissinger that said this, no? That the only thing worse than being an enemy to America is to be his ally. Because you're going to be the first one to be sacrificed when it's necessary. And we see that by the way they treated the Nord Stream, the pipes that were coming from Russia to Europe. In the moment that the US was losing competitivity because they stopped investing into the industrialization and they became just a huge bank, a huge speculation capital, and they lost competitivity, they were even losing competitivity against Europe. So in a way, it was a win-win for them to try to fuck with Russia and Europe at the same time. So they made services and energies more expensive to Europe, compromising their competitivity because America needed instant cash because the power of the dollar was being compromised around the world. So in that sense, I think either Europe becomes a geopolitical bloc with true independence, not as an echo of NATO that just echoes whatever American Anglo capital determines, or they're going to be the first ones to be sacrificed.
But what I'm interested in here is because you were kind of making a normative-ish, but not normative in the philosophical sense, but a statement about what you would do, like what you would see. So you were talking about, I would emulate China, not the United States. And then there's kind of a discussion about the way it's like, well, because if you want to ally with the US, then you're going to end up getting fucked. But then, like, I guess the question that's sort of lost for me is, okay, but like, to what end would you want to emulate China? Like, so is it just about rebalancing the world to make it more multipolar? Is it about like some outcome that you're looking for concretely, right? That like, is there something that you're seeing in China? Because I guess I think about a lot of the European countries and I kind of think, well, in terms of like just stability, and even Canada to some extent, it's like, I mean, there's problems everywhere, but there's problems in China, there's problems here. So what thing are you looking to, like, and I know that you're not some idealist. In fact, quite the opposite. I know that you're not. So I know that, like, for you, it's not about like, oh, this is going to be the ultimate, like, revolute, like this is going to be like a utopia at all, right? I know that that's not your end goal. So I know you're looking for something more realistic.
Very pragmatic.
So what is that? Because to me, it's like, it seems like the institutions in Europe and Canada and some, like, they're working pretty well. Like most people have a pretty good life. Yeah. So like, why is that not appealing? But like a Chinese system is.
Two things. Like the first, the very pragmatic is the measurements of what do we judge as the outcome of a political model or even a civilizatory model. I think it would be a more appropriate word than political, because I think it's truly civilizatory and not only political. What China did is that they lifted 700 million people out of poverty in 70 years. Okay. And the second thing is that they started from a much more similar starting point than us in South America, because we cannot emulate the Nordic system or the Canadian system because we didn't have a couple of centuries of exploiting the south of the world. So it's kind of hard for us to sustain a social democratic model because we're not stealing from countries on a even so southern part of the globe. Okay, so we don't have that luxury. What China did was that they exchanged cheap labor and commodities in exchange for intellectual capital and innovation for a very long time, and by creating TVCs and cooperative and political technology and special economic trading areas, by controlling the amount of effect that capital exerts on political forces. By what Deng said, Deng Xiaoping, he said that the market, it's a horrible master, but it's an excellent slave. And then he said that it doesn't matter the color of the cat as long as it's hunting mice. In the sense that the notion is that you have to, as much as you can, try to instrumentalize the voracity and the predictability of the market in order to build towards something that is determined, that is positively determined, right? So I think in that sense, the two things, like the starting point from countries in South America or even in the global South, are much more similar to where China was 70 or 100 years ago. Okay, because we were not the colonial north of the world that were colonizing and extracting from the south of the world.
Yeah.
So your model is not replicable. That would be an idealistic replication. It is to assume that is only the idealistic model of institutions that is providing the outcome. But the true materialistic reading is to say, no, you're successful. Like the Dutch are successful because of what I did in Congo, not because their institutions are nice and fair.
Hey, that was Belgium.
That was Belgium. I'm so sorry. The Dutch are the best.
The Dutch are not the best, but they are not Belgium. The Dutch did New York, South Africa, Indonesia, New Zealand, but in their defense, they did not do the Congo.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I was thinking about the chocolate hens. So chocolate hens are from Belgium, right? Or from Belgium?
Yeah, that was Leopold II.
Leopold,
right?
King Leopold. Yeah, because he loved to chop the hands of the children of the slaves that did not reach their quota. And to honor that very, very nice ritual and tradition, now people in Belgium, they eat little chocolate hens, which is beautiful, if you ask me.
Okay, that's actually that's a great answer.
You know that, right? You knew that?
No, I didn't know that.
You
I
can,
didn't know that either.
you can Google that. That's 100% true and accurate.
Hey, man, if you want to cancel Belgium, that's fine with me.
But their chocolate is pretty good, but I think it's pretty fucked up to make it into like chocolate hens.
Isn't it also, yeah, well, this isn't nearly as bad, but I think it doesn't one of these Nordic countries also every Christmas have like a blackface, like a black-faced Christmas kid or something?
No, that's not a Nordic country. That's Zwarte Piet. And he's a chimney sweep, which is why his face is black.
Oh, yeah. Wait, is that Dutch?
Yes, it's Dutch. And Zwarte Piet is the very well-respected, well-esteemed, not racist helper of Santa Claus.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but Diego, that was a great answer. I think that makes a lot of sense to me about like the starting point, especially. I mean, I remember whenever I'd visit my uncles in Chile, sometimes we would have these conversations about like why does Latin America have so many problems, like compared to, I remember we talked about climate. We're like, well, look, Australia had a similar climate, but it's just that they've obviously like, well, in the sense that at least compared to Chile, so it's kind of similar. The Australian climate.
Dude, we kind of did that. Like we're directly responsible for it. Not the Dutch, the Canadians. I think it's over 40% of all mining in Latin America is owned by Canadian companies.
Thank you, Pills.
So the reason that we have such a nice, stable, democratic institutions that we can respectfully debate over is because Canada is, in essence, a bank for storing and reinvesting the capital accumulation of mining profits.
Of course, no. So
boss comment from Pills to be.
I'm totally agreeing. Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you about that. So that makes sense. I guess I wonder, like, what do you think happened in the cases of like South Korea, Japan, Singapore, like, because those obviously presumably had a similar starting point to China.
South Korea.
Diego, I got this one. American military base,
yes.
American military base, American military base.
Yes.
But then eventually, like, where are they now?
South Korea is a military base with ramen. It's like...
I guess so. They're like a pretty advanced economy now. They have a pretty diversified economy in terms of like the stuff that they're...
Yeah, and one of the highest suicide rates, and then like pop stars are killing themselves. It's like...
Just farms for TikTokers.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're going to find a system that's perfect, right? So like, I'm not here trying to claim that it's
not perfect, but like they didn't agree to that. Sure, you can say, well, they have a high standard of living now, but they only became nodes of capital accumulation because they're on the borders of America's enemies. It's not like they accumulated wealth with good political theory or good institutions, because they were basically dictatorships. And you can't just replicate that model unless the USA... The USA of the 1960s decides that it needs to be in your country for some reason.
Exactly. And then
there's the flip side. There's the flip side, which is that if you do anything to piss off America, like nationalize your resources, close your doors to investment, then if they don't invade you, then they sanction the shit out of you. And then if if the American economy basically is the world market, and then they decide to cut you out, then of course you're fucked. And then of course you're going to start looking at your multipolarity options. I
think this is even a very traditional dialectical reading of what happened. Because of sanctions, the multipolar world is becoming inevitable.
Yeah. They're doing it to themselves. The more people you use this as a weapon on, then all those people, if there's one system and there's a bunch of excluded people, then they can form their own system.
Alternative, exactly. Russia has 19,000 sanctions and Venezuela has 900 sanctions. And I think North Korea is right in the middle as the top 3 most sanctioned countries in the world. Only the US uses sanctions. Like, sanctions are always imposed by the US and then adopted by the allies. But sanction is pretty much an American word.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think just to kind of sum up, I mean, I think that the kind of pragmatic answer of like, well, it just seems like it would be easier to adopt a Chinese style system based on where Latin America is makes sense to me. Yeah. And then I guess this stuff about sanctions, I mean, it's true. But I was just thinking about like China and so, well, I don't know. There's a couple thoughts I have in my mind, but like one of them is like,
oh, please talk about the Uyghurs or talk about
no, that's
freedom of expression. I would love to go there.
I wasn't going to go there at all. Actually, I'm still on economics kind of. I'm still on kind of like, how does a country get to the point where it has like stable institutions and kind of like,
who cares about stable institutions? Who cares? I don't care about stable institutions.
But isn't that the point? Like, so okay, so then what, like, okay, so then what is the thing you're after then? I'm confused, because it's like
pragmatical benefits for the basis of for people.
I
want life expectancy. I want life expectancy. I want literacy. I want food security. I want health services and education.
So, I mean, I think that like South Korea and Japan are delivering very, very strongly on all those things.
But nobody has done it in the speed and then the quality and the amount, even to come close to what China has done from the same starting point as China. That's the point. And it's really simple to argue.
But you don't think that South Korea was in a similar situation? I mean, they went from
no, not even remotely close. I mean, South Korea has less than 100 million inhabitants, and it was close and protected and imposed by an American dictatorship. China has 1.4 billion people, and they started from a very materialistic philosophy, which is Confucianism. That's also a very important part of why Marxism worked in China, and why nihilism took over Europe,
or took over like those other Asian countries.
Well, but I mean, you can trace it back to how institutions were formed. I think you spoke about this when you talk about was Levi-Strauss, about open and closed societies.
Levi-Strauss, we talked about the raw and the cooked.
No,
but we also talked about Leo Strauss.
Oh, Leo
Strauss. Yeah, Leo Strauss. Sorry. Yeah, Leo Strauss, and this notion about how nihilism either became into cynism, and then the violent reaction to nihilism, which became Nazism, which was something about destroying the possibility of the affirmation of reaching modernity. And I think in that sense, that's why China escaped that trap, in a way. It was isolated by itself, or by the century of shame that was left out of this game. I mean, it's a miracle that China escaped idealism in the last century.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can move on. I mean, I'm not entirely sure about. I mean, there's a couple of thoughts. I mean, I actually mostly agree. I just think that there's to me, it's not clear. I guess the difference with China, with South Korea and Japan, is that both of them basically were run by the U.S. behind the scenes. Is that basically the main thesis, that like from behind the scenes they're like,
well, in front of the scene?
But then, like, doesn't that show you that like being
wasn't yesterday like the 70th anniversary of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And because they didn't invite Israel and they invited Palestine, the US and G7 didn't show up to the ceremony. And even in that amount, they were not able to name and blame the US on using the atomic bombs. Isn't that clear enough? Like, I don't know.
Isn't it? I thought I don't know. It's funny. I had a memory that really, so they didn't show up. I don't know why, but I have like this vague memory of seeing an article about this and how like the US did like officially apologize or something. I mean, not that matters, but
our bad. Oopsie.
Oopsie. Yeah, sorry. Big oopsie. Boo boo.
But Korea's been a military base since 1952, and they had a extremely, if we're talking about far right authorizations, they were far right authorized for until the 80s, I think.
Well, this is kind of like, I think for me, like what's interesting is like, yeah, like what do we want, right? Like what's the outcome? And I think you listed a bunch of things that make sense to me, right? Like literacy, like well-being,
life expectancy,
like childhood mortality, like all that stuff. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess China's doing well, but then I don't know.
Not well. Extraordinary.
No. Yeah, extraordinarily well. But I guess like the thing maybe that I'm struggling with, I'm trying to figure out like what it is that like
at what
is
cost?
Bothering me a little bit or something.
Can I ask you, Victor? Because I think this is what you're asking. If someone came to your country, you're the leader of a country, and they're like, I can promise you that in 60 years you'll have capital running through your country, you'll have literacy, you'll have kids in TikTok farms, but you first have to have a military dictatorship for 40 years. They're going to kill all your leftists. They're not going to allow any alternative to this other country that you have to send all your electronics to. Do you say yes or no to that? Or do you try to do it your own way?
But don't you have to say yes? But isn't that the same deal whether you choose the Chinese route or the American route?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
Tell me one country where China imposed its model on, or even invaded.
No, I'm talking about within China. I'm talking about within China, right? Like there's a destruction of dissidents and like,
So you're talking about the right of self-determination, which I'm gonna shed on Lenin now. I'm openly against the right of self-determination. I think that's insane.
Well, so if you're against the right of self-determination, then who cares about the American way then?
I agree. It's just a matter of force.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, so,
but that's history.
So
that's history.
I'm agreeing with you.
History is non-moral. History is about power and force.
I'm totally with you on that. But that's the thing that's been confusing me. It's like
no, I'm not moralistic about this at all.
That's exactly the thing that's bothering me, because it's like, because you have a preference for one, but I'm like, but if you're non-moral, then like what, like, and then the preference makes sense from the perspective.
No, but I don't have a preference. I have data.
No,
not a preference.
Victor, I was going to back you up there. You thought I was coming in to,
Okay.
I was going to back you up, because now I have to turn the same question to Diego. What's wrong with Korea choosing to be a military base?
Data.
Yeah, exactly.
Outcome. Measurable data.
They got they have a pretty decent outcome.
They got a great outcome.
No, but it's not comparable in terms of outcome, because we cannot apply a model from the north which was under different material historical conditions to the south. That's a different starting point.
Well, that opens the door to another puzzle. But anyway, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, but we have tried neoliberalism for what, 50 years now? We're still fucked.
Let's just do what works. And I think what I've been trying to do is tease out. I'm like, is Diego actually sneaking in some moralism here where he's not? But I know you're not. I believe you. I believe you that you're not. But I'm saying, but that's kind of where my question's coming from, right? Because I'm just like trying to figure out, well, what's actually grounding the motivation here, right?
I know, and that's why I love these conversations. They're all in very good faith, and you guys are awesome. And I really miss having these talks with you guys. I cannot stress this enough. Man. The pill pot, it's a fucking holy ground which we should defend, and I will break my Spartan spear to defend your right to challenge each other and to have these conversations. They're too good. They're way too good.
I love it. Okay, we can move on now. I feel satisfied with the resolution of that conversation.
So you see, Victor, this is, and I've wanted to make this comment to you so many times listening to the pill pod. Like the way liberal politics have worked is that either anthropology or priests or strongman, they make a statement about human nature, and then they try to create institutions that reflect a transcendental truth about human nature. And then we call failure institutions that don't truly reflect the transcendental truth about human nature. And we call that the failure. But the issue is that the formula itself is wrong. There is no true transcendental characteristics to human behavior. So that's why we will never be able, because there's a dialectical constitution between material conditions and subjectivity. How do you want to create constitutions or institutions that reflect and suppose Archimedean truth that is outside of the text, that is supposed to guide our way into true institutions?
No. I don't actually see institutions that way. I mean, I could understand why maybe you would. I mean, I think my emphasis on them is I actually see them as pragmatic devices when they work, right? Like it's not really about some true reflection of human nature. I just think that when you, like, I think that there's such a thing like that happens in a society, right? Which is maybe based on the material conditions of this, which I'm sure are, that might contribute to something like, for example, trust, right? Trust in the society. Like how much do we think that like our neighbor is trying to fuck us over? Yeah. Right. Like, and the reasons for that are material. But then I think that certain kinds of institutions that rely on trust, if you're in a society where everyone thinks that everyone else is trying to fuck them over, well, that's probably going to be one where institutions aren't going to work that well, because even the people who are supposed to be the guardians of the institutions are going to be taking advantage of it. Right. And that's what we call what like, I don't know, liberals call corruption. Right.
Isn't the cause and effect there backwards? Because isn't it the case that you can develop stable institutions and things like trust when there's enough money moving around, things being exchanged?
Yes, that's what I mean.
You need a bunch of economic stability before any of that other stuff happens. So that other stuff.
That's what I meant by the institutions reflect what's already existing in a way. Yeah. Like in the culture, in the people. So the reason why English institutions probably worked better in like Australia and Canada and the United States is because there's already a bunch of money and a bunch of like stuff happening in England. And then it's like, it was just adapted here. And I think that maybe the reason institutions didn't work as well in Latin America was maybe because the Spanish crown was so fucking corrupt and there was so much clientelism going on that like, I don't think those institutions were like as stable and strong, because already within them, like they were implanting in Latin America, as far as I know. I mean, I'm no expert on this, but I think it reflected what was already going on. I mean, Spain was a lot poorer. I think they were like, there's less stability in Spain. So I don't think that I mean, that's at least one part of the story, I think, of like why it didn't work as well.
The market and capitalism was a great moral system to impose upon the colonies to promote productivity.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I agree. But you have some preconditions that makes that work, right? And that's
no. But it was never imposed with the intention to develop quality of life for the proletariat. It was intended as a moral framework to create competition and extract as much surplus value as possible from the colonies.
Absolutely. But I mean, but that's
colonizers were protectionists, nationalists, and they had planned economies. They used the free market as an excuse to impose a moral system, a theological moral system. Because this is also something I wanted to ask. I wanted to comment on the past comments you guys did. What's the difference between the notion you were discussing from religion as we are always already religious, right? So it's almost like we cannot escape this religious approach to reality. Isn't this similar to the critique of ideology from Marx? Because it's not the same as false consciousness. Because I do agree there's a critique to be made to Marx that there's no such thing as a true consciousness. Consciousness, as we understand from psychoanalysis, it's impossible to be a one-to-one, objectively real representation or relationship to reality. Our relationship to reality is always already mediated, right? So there's no such thing as a real consciousness. Consciousness is always false. It's always lacking or divided. So in that sense, isn't the notion of ideology the same or similar to the concept you were using about religion as a fake mediator to reality, or as a fake ontology? Isn't religion just fake ontology?
I thought that they were
But religion's real ontology, though.
Okay. This is where I wanted to get to. Can you elaborate on that? Because I think I agree.
Okay, so when we're talking about Marxism, this is where it gets confusing, because there's Marx, and Marx has like at least two big stages. Yeah. What you're talking about sounds like later Marx.
Yeah.
But a lot of Marxism is talking about humanist Marx. So if we unmuddle those, then the sociality itself comes from religion and not a religion. So we've been talking about or you're talking about Taoism. That doesn't matter. This is external. Because even though you say the West, the Christian West is so individualistic, you have all of those communal elements in Christianity too. They just didn't win out. So whichever, you can debate, historicize how we got to the individualist version of Christianity rather than the other side, and maybe it's evolved differently in different places.
Mac and DOS.
Right. But I don't know which Marxist approach you're taking, because you haven't articulated it all the way down to the bottom. But pretty much he goes to primitive society, classical society, ancient, feudal, modern, and says that this was the sociality, the glue that holds society together, is economic exchange, like physical stuff. Who owns it? Who doesn't own it? And then how do you trick people? This is the crude Marxism. How do you trick the poor into serving the rich, so that they're all happy with it? But the Durkheim explanation says there's something prior to economics. And I can say I'm 75% historical materialist, and then the 25% left is what creates the conditions for economics, even what creates the conditions for language and consciousness in this prior sense. And for Durkheim, and I'm kind of agreeing with this until we go through the rest of the texts, but it's symbolic. And that's the fundamental part of it's religion stripped of any of its religion. It's groupness, basically, the unifying groupness, as opposed to animals.
So if I may ask, Pils, is by this religion that you're implying in the Durkheim sense, which again I agree, is a system of symbols?
It's not a system of symbols, because that would be like a Christianity, Taoism, but it's the structure of symbols, the structure of symbols itself. So prior to any individual symbols, it's the form, religious form.
So is the pre-existing structure necessary for a system of symbols to exist?
Yes.
Okay.
And the structure is what arrives when the humans sit around the fire together. The structure arrives, and then they start to fill it up with stuff. They start to fill it up with the bear and the magical stars, and all the stuff they see around them becomes symbols in that system. but the systematicity, the program
Yeah.
is society.
It needs to exist. Yeah, it needs to exist in order for those different systems to emerge. But
And it doesn't exist a priori. It's not like Chomsky's language argument or Kant's a priori categories. No, it's built in that experience.
in our relationship to the world and in the world itself.
I'd say both. The world before the symbolic structure is just apeiron. It's nothing.
Yeah, because then we are into like murky waters of Maurice Merleau-Ponty, and like there's an ability for the world to be perceived, and there's our ability to perceive the world that is perceivable. And in this relationship, there is something that enables a system of symbols to emerge.
Are you asking whether the world elicits the symbols or not?
Yeah, so like it's something
that's beyond my scope. I don't know.
Then we go back to because, for example, the world doesn't need our categorization or ability to symbolize in order to go on.
Well, there are some who believe that it does. They are teleological in some sense, that the universe produced a force that eventually resulted in us to look back upon itself in some form of knowledge or some sort of non-reflective natural outcome. But to be honest, that all just seems like mysticism to me. I'm partial to the belief that we are a very interesting accident.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's some sort of an attitude on the world that language enables, right? I think that the two things, I think even the ability to perceive the world is so intertwined with our linguistic habits that, like, I remember one of the first papers I wrote in my master's was about these experiments of color perception with some African tribes, because there are some African tribes where they don't have a word for the blue-green color boundary. So like that line, and you can give them like a circle of like 12 squares, and they'll have one that's slightly more blue than green. Yeah. And they won't be able to see the difference, but then like Westerners will notice which one's different right away. And similarly, like this tribe they cut up the green boundary, like on the spectrum somewhere where we don't. And like, you can show us a bunch of circles. I've seen it and I can't tell which one is different than the others. One of them is slightly off, but they can see that. So like I use that, I don't know, that anthropological stuff to make a Merleau-Pontian argument. And I was like, well, on Merleau-Ponty's account, this shouldn't be surprising, because like our linguistic habits are as much a habit as our embodied habits. And therefore we should expect to have perceptual habits that come as a result. That doesn't mean that like color is relative, like the spectrum is there. It's just like where we decide to divide the spectrum is kind of contingent, and then therefore is going to have some sort of an impact on how we see the world. I have no idea if that's helpful to what you were asking about, but yeah.
Well, that's the point of Durkheim's version of religion. People won't like it, I don't think, because they don't like the term religion. But if you take the French sociologists, religion is the thing that makes the first demarcation in reality. Prior to religion, which is just group, prior to the group sociality forming, there is no distinctions. So you can call it nothing, you can call it the indefinite, you can call it flux, whatever. It's just there's no distinction, so there's no point in saying this is here, that's there, this is one moment, that was the past moment, there's the future moment. But at some point, there's no meaning in the world. And then all of a sudden, an entire secondary universe of meaning appears. Yep. And I don't think, by the way, that it's coincident with human consciousness. I think it probably happened prior to humans becoming anything like modern humans. But yeah, there it is. A meaning verse as opposed to a lifeless void fluctuating.
Yeah. Just like an unended, indistinguishable flow of stimuli.
And then you have like retroactive causality into there. Like we create the Big Bang by observing it. It didn't exist prior to observation.
But I think it does flow from meaning, from like meaning being the ultimate question of like that. Like I think language, all these things flow from meaning. I think like it's like a meaning first view or something, like not that you have stimuli that then we add meaning to. I think like we start with meaning as like the type of beings we are that are like, and then these other things I think probably flow from that, if that makes sense.
The counter response is that you are always already physical in order for the meaning to emerge.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, of course, somewhere down the line, but but by the time language came along, I think that must have been flowing from meaning making.
Yeah, you need a mouth in order for language to emerge.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you want to go back to like pre whatever, but like, I don't know what the purpose of that would be.
If we didn't have mouths, would language emerge as sound images?
We're talking about language here. I would say language is secondary to the meaning structure.
Yeah,
it's
me too.
It requires it, but you can
That's kind of
also
what I've been trying to
see.
say. Yeah.
You can see in like higher primates, elephants, shit like that. They seem to have a nascent meaning structure, and we can look at that and then go, okay, ours is like that, except maxed out. Because language is an exponential accelerator. Because now the signs themselves, they take the place of the referent. You don't actually even need the referent there anymore, and then you can play whatever games you want, creating an entire universe out of basically nothing.
Exactly.
So it's on
That's
steroids.
Sliding signifiers.
Yeah, and that's what kind of makes humans different. It's a difference in degree, not a difference in kind. Whereas we've been arguing for thousands of years that it's a difference in kind. It's almost impossible you can't bring up this conversation at a barbecue because they're like, my dog looks fucking stupid. What are you talking about?
Yeah, this is a tough barbecue topic. Eh?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's well put. I think that's right.
So it's strange because it kept bringing me back to the difference between la langue, language, and the act of speech. You know, like the difference is the Susorian difference, isn't it?
Yeah, parole.
Exactly. So the parole, exactly, the Susorian difference. And in that sense, I think the ability to make mistakes in the symbolic exchange is what gave us that leap forward. You know, because I don't see other species lying or making jokes or like fooling the others into misbelieving, like, no, I lied to you, there's no lion down there, you know, like in that sense, like, lie and mistake is like a peak human performance.
Aren't there birds that like pretend to be injured to lure like predators away from their young?
Yeah, there's deception with animals. There's definitely deception.
Maybe I misexpress. It's not necessarily like, because that's a like an instinctive mechanism with a very specific, but mistakes, like direct mistakes in language, like misinterpretations. You know, like you cannot confuse the seduction dance of a peacock by a death threat. That's what I mean.
I'd rather not go here because I don't know about animal psychology, and I'm sure it's a actually robust area of philosophy. I just don't know anything about it.
Isn't there a chapter in Maurice Merleau-Ponty about bees and how bees, like, they go back to the hive and they bounce like a number of times and then they spin around and then they end up facing exactly the direction when there's a flower, and the number of bounces is directly proportional to the distance from the hive to the flower?
They do.
I learned this from Magic School Bus, that bees can dance to direct to where there's like a new field of flowers or something.
Yeah, and I think Merleau-Ponty talks about animal psychology more in the structure of behavior, just like the other book that he has.
Right.
But the difference is these are not symbolic actions.
Exactly.
You don't the dance doesn't take the place of the thing that it's representing. In a sense, it is the thing that it's representing. It's not here's a representation like a map would be. It's not a representation of the physical space you have to cross. It's like pushing buttons and getting a response. And someone in the Discord told me that actually only 10% of bees can actually find, based on like 10% of the observers, bees can only find their way to the directions properly. So it's not an exact science for them yet.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
So no communication is exact science. Well, no surprise there.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the spiral of silence quickly? I mean, I guess we're probably running low on time, but
we could. This will be the longest episode ever, but I think it'll be okay.
I'm so proud. I'm so proud to be the parrot that made it happen.
Yeah, we were gonna do Marcel Mauss today, the origin of symbolic exchange, but Diego heard our last episode. It's a short reading. Don't worry, I wasn't gonna spring it on you.
Okay.
But this is a weird book. I've never read it. Apparently it's like wildly popular. It's a book from the 1970s that was written by a psychologist for psychologists, and then just blew up into wide mainstream recognition, which is odd to me because I've never heard of it. But Diego, you picked it. You want to describe or outline the spiral of silence?
Yeah, so in a very simplistic way, I think this is interesting for us to discuss since we are part of the noise in social media. The spiral of silence can be like recapped into saying that there's people, because of the fear of exile, and because historically exile was equal to death. People were exiled from cities as an equivalent of the punishment of death. Because of our fear of exile, every time we express our opinion, we measure our opinion against what we think is the currently dominant opinion of the public. And because of the way mass media works, and this work is even kind of prior to social media being the dominant medium of communication, the way we determine what is the dominant opinion is determined by a loudly vocal minority. So the silent majority determine what is the dominant point of view because of a loudly vocal minority. And this creates a spiral of silence. And in the end, it's a very small amount of overly loud individuals determine what they create as a perception of the dominating opinion, and the silent majority, just like out of fear of being exiled, they prefer not to talk. And this becomes an issue, and I think especially relevant right now, because we have, for example, like Twitter or X became like the divorced dad notice board. X became like the echo of the divorced dads. So if you wanna survive X, you have to think, act, and have opinions that are equals to a divorced dad. That's the recap of Spiral of Silence.
I like it. When I was looking over this outline, it kind of reminded me of this early memory I have, which might have been one of the first times I heard someone make what I would later realize was like a philosophical observation. I was like a kid, and like my parents were at dinner with some friends that I don't even remember. And this guy, like one of the guests, they were talking about like what motivates people, like why do people do the things that, and it was like overly simplified, but this somehow reminded me of it. He was just saying, I just think people are trying to not be uncomfortable. And like everything that we do is just to not be uncomfortable. And like, every time we talk to people, we're just trying to make conversation and not feel uncomfortable. And I was like a little kid, and I was just like, oh shit, like that's true. Like all we're ever trying to do. And like this thing about kind of like the social pressure and like no one wants to stand out. I mean, it just kind of reminded me of that. And I mean, it kind of on the surface sort of seems, there's very little for me to disagree with here. I mean, I feel like at least based on the outline and what you said, I mean, it kind of makes sense. And it feels like one of those things that you could apply to a lot of situations, a lot of different kind of controversies. And even when, I'm even reminded of when I feel like Zizek used to tell this story about how, the moment that the Soviet Union fell, it's like all of a sudden you had all these people saying, well, I never agreed with it, right? Like I always thought it was a bad idea, but, and apparently this is a pretty common phenomenon. When any sort of a regime finally crashes, you kind of find that all these people who are authorizing it were like, yeah, I thought it was bullshit the whole time,
Yeah, it's cool. What do you think, Phil?
I was just going to try to illustrate with a simple example. We always use sports examples when talking about early French sociology because it's the thing where you can see religion most on display. But the example, just because the name is Spiral of Silence, that I thought of was, why is everyone quiet in a library? There's signs, but you're completely free to disobey the signs at any point, but yet everyone whispers. And it's like you start at the door, even if you're talking to the receptionist in the library, you whisper. And that's kind of just an example of real silence, because if you talk loud, people will look at you. And the second that you're looked at, you're identified, then you are no longer part of the furniture. Now you're standing out. And that's something that we want to avoid.
Did you notice that those silent spaces existed at that spa, the Thermea?
No, because everyone was talking.
Because there's a side of it. There's one side of it that's like silent, and some of those things, and you have to be quiet. And it's funny. There's a spa that's similar in Montreal called Boda Boda, and at that one, they have guards who walk around and really police it. And like I remember I was there. We were in the hot tub once, and like these two girls were kind of like whispering to each other, and then like within 5 minutes, like some guy tapped them on the shoulder and was just like, "Shh."
So that's coercive authority.
That's coercive authority. Yeah, that's coercive authority.
the religious authority is self-coercion. It's like
Exactly.
even if there wasn't a sign, people would still not make noise.
And the library is a good example.
Even if there were not a fence, people would still not run onto the field. So this is part of an original demarcation of let's not stand out. But if we can apply this to Twitter for a second, and maybe different social media sites, they're going to have separate ecologies. But I think the problem you can see very simply is just runaway positive feedback. When an entire community shifts, these places are set up. They're set up with rewards systems. And the reward system of Twitter being, as you said, divorced dad, is very different from normal society. So people start confusing a space with completely different boundaries with normal society. But saying something on Twitter that's normal is almost, not 100%, but almost the discouraged speech. If you just give a normie take, a normie opinion on anything, it just won't get seen. It's not even that you'll be punished or coerced out of speaking.
Oh my God, I see your point.
It's if you say the weirder thing, then people react to it either angrily or positively, and then more people see it, and then more people see it, and then more people see it. So
what is good appears, and what appears is good.
What appears is good. And we saw this right after our episode on JD Vance. I think we called it. We were ahead of the curve on this.
The couch fucker?
Victor. Yeah, because we said he's just he's a weirdo.
They're weird nerds.
Isn't he the one with sexual philias toward couches or something like that?
He loves fucking couches, I guess. But he's a Twitter person, you know, like his consciousness is, they're all talking about the woke mind virus, and the woke mind virus has created its own inverse, which is the divorced dad virus.
Divorced dad ontology. Yeah, divorced dad ontology.
And the Democratic Party just started being like, these guys are weird. And now they have to step up and be like, no, we're not weird. And they are.
They're so weird, yeah.
The reason they're weird is because they're stuck in these feeds that you only get rewarded for saying the weirdest shit. Like obsessing over which Olympic athlete is trans.
Boxer has genitalia. Yeah.
All fucking day. This is the thing that you're obsessed with. And if that is treated as normal because it is extreme, so it's rewarded in a Twitter space.
I see.
Then you try to bring that to the regular people and go, this person is for sure a man. Let's find her dick. Then they're like, sorry, like my kids are here, sir. This is a Wendy's.
It's so good. Feels that's so good. I love it. That's so good. It's so good because it's so true.
It's so good. That's a great connection. Yeah.
And I think that also explains the rage of Twitter, because people they almost feel like this entitlement to not being contradicted into their online madness. You know, like it's since madness is rewarded in social media, when madness is challenged, it becomes like this childish behavior towards castration. You know, like you cannot devalidate my notions because I've been rewarded so many times for having these outlandish notions about the world. But it's true that any of these guys, they go to a barbecue on Sundays and they're like, hey man, you saw the penis on that girl boxer? And everybody's gonna be like, Phil, shut the fuck up. Are you insane? It's like, are you crazy?
Totally true. It's interesting how social media created like a reversal where like people got the internet, social media, and they're like, wow, now I can say shit that like maybe I've thought about and there's not going to be those consequences. And now it's like that went so far that the internet became the norm, where the actual, like where the spiral of silence is the norm you take online, right?
Yeah. The map replaced the reality. Like Borges said, the map is much more important than the real territory.
It's good stuff. That's very, very good. I think yeah, that's funny. I mean, it's, you know, the weird thing, I didn't even realize until recently that it was the Tim Walz guy, the guy who Kamala Harris picked as her running mate. He's the one who started calling them weird. And then she picked him because he popularized it. Like he was on MSNBC on Morning Joe. He was like, these people are just weird. It's like and then all the Democrats started saying it because of him. And then she picked him as her running mate.
You see, Victor, we have a newer system to build upon your lottery-based politics. It's a memocracy. If you're good enough to create a meme, then you're even better than democracy. The meme is the real democracy of our age.
He is absolutely. He's like a meme candidate.
That's
although,
it.
of course, he checked off all the other boxes because he's like a football coach and a teacher and a military guy, and like
That's it.
You know, he eats meat. He's not a vegetarian. He's just like, no one can accuse him of being weird. He's got serious like uncle. He's got serious like nice uncle vibes.
We should do a reading of the story from Borges called The Lottery of Babylon. Have you read it?
Not Library
No.
of Babel.
It's called The Lottery of Babylon. And it's a society where the only true rule is the rule of a lottery. They decide everything with lotteries. The tale is so fucking good. Read it. You're going to love it.
Well, that's cool. I'd love to read that. I wanted to say one other thing about the Walls pick, though, for the Democrats, just to get into like boring American politics for a second. But I think what's so genius about this pick, by the way, or sorry, not what's genius about the pick. I mean, the pick is fine, whatever, who cares? But the weird thing, what's so genius about the weird thing about framing it and using that rhetoric is like, I do think there was something getting tiresome, and that felt a bit strained about like everyone just saying that, oh, Trump is an existential crisis. Trump is going to like, you know, destroy democracy. And it's like that stuff was just getting old, right? And it's like you needed something, and I feel like weird just captures it so much better, right? Because I think it does two things. Like one is like, is Trump really like an existential crisis? Like I don't know, like maybe, like, but like not really. And then the other thing is like, whenever you use the rhetoric of like fascism, he's a fascist, and like, you know, what Hillary Clinton said, his followers are baskets of deplorables. You know, from a purely political standpoint, that was like a loser, right? Because you're calling those people, you know, like people who also want to take down America or whatever. But then by using the rhetoric of weird, you're just saying, no, these people that you're following, they're weird. And it's like, look how weird they are. Like, look at the weird stuff that they're saying. And it's like, it's nice because it diffuses that kind of problem that I think Democrats can come off as just being so smug, right? Like, because, oh, like you're such a, like, and they are, I mean, they are smug, but like, yeah, you know, but it's like somehow I think this language of weird is just, I don't know. I just admiring it as like a piece of political rhetoric.
It's the
I think really
reversal.
smart.
It's a dialectical reversal, because as soon as you call the guy a fascist, his bands are going to take over the government again. You're just meeting them. You're ratcheting up the tension, meeting them where they at. But then if you just say, no, these are fucking weirdos whose brains are on Twitter, it's like just putting a little pin in the balloon.
It's perfect. It's honestly
watching
perfect.
the air just disappear. And then people are like relieved. It's like, this is just what I wanted. I just wanted fucking
Somebody said it.
normal people.
Could somebody point it out that these people are fucking weirdos? Like,
if I may, as I coined the memocracy word, at least to my knowledge, it may be a lie. Maybe somebody already created a political theory about memocracy. But as the currently undisputed owner of the political matter memocracy, I'm gonna say that the divorce dad ontology can only be overcome by the new brat attitude. You guys are cringe. Divorcee orphan ontology, the way I see it.
We're not weird. They're trying to cut off kids' genitals. Look at them all. You're proving my point, you fucking weirdo.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do, eh? They're trying to
you don't understand. They're trying to make your kids gay. Now look at this picture that I zoomed in really close on this wrestler's crotch.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I actually sent my dad, like, oh god, I don't want to keep shitting on my dad. I feel bad. I'm not gonna.
They are weird, very, very, very weird for sure.
They're
so
weird.
guys, don't ghost me again, please. I don't want to be ghosted by you guys.
I never ghost you. It's fucking pills over here.
You guys ghosted me so hard. I never felt more ghosted in my life. It's insane.
Bro, don't talk to me about ghosting here, okay? I went to Mexico City.
It's true. When you came to Mexico, I was going to rough shit. I couldn't see you.
Oh, the ghosted turns out to be the ghoster. Well, Diego, insofar as it's me ghosting, I leave so many messages unread. I feel immediately burdened by the notifications that pile up, and it's my mental health calculus to just ignore everything, including my siblings who are messaging me. But I've been missing like 2010 Facebook lately, because if you think back, there was no news feed, and the people that you interacted on there was your friends. If you didn't have a Facebook account, you couldn't really get invited to events because everything would just be a Facebook event. But it wasn't a closed off communication circuit that's distinct from the normal world. It was almost used as a facilitator of interaction in the real world. But as we get these different systems,
silos,
and then as generations leave it, like Gen Zs are not on Twitter as far as I know.
Yeah.
But then you get divorced dads just talking to each other all day long, and they rile each other up into oblivion. And now it's this mess where you get just the most insane racist shit just casually spouted off.
I had a lot of people say that now there's 2 tabs in X. Is like the people you follow, and there's a tab called For You, which are like algorithm suggestions. Like everybody says, that. For You is just Mein Kampf.
It's what?
Mein Kampf,
it's
like
just
the
what?
book from Hitler. It got totally out of control. Like you will go into For You, like the suggested stuff, and it's like the Chef's Choice. But Chef's Choice is like Elon's divorce that takes on the world. It's insane. It's completely unhinged.
Mine is all cat stuff. My For You. I just saw. I mean, this is like a great. I mean, I'll even show you guys like the first one that I just got. I was like, this is great. I'm gonna send this to my girlfriend. It's just like historical paintings of cats stealing food, like from like the 1700s. It's pretty great.
How do you,
Still very, very relevant, eh? Very relevant.
How do you get your For You page to do that?
I mean, it's probably just because I did like look at a lot of cat content. I don't know, and then maybe it's just giving me more stuff.
I have Trump, Elon Musk, and wokeness are my top 3 on my For You page.
You need to train that algorithm, and you need to smash it hard.
Number 4, Matt Walsh. I saw the media making a big deal about the all-black podium at the Olympics and thought it was just dumb race baiting. I didn't realize they blatantly robbed a white girl out of her medals so they could all get their black podium. Truly the DEI Olympics.
So crazy. Can I simplify the American elections?
Sure.
The average acquisition cost per vote of the Democrats is like $14 per vote. And the average acquisition cost per vote for Republicans is like $8 per vote. That's it.
So their lower common denominator?
That's it. Yes, it's the easier way to figure out who's going to win. Who's got the most donations and the average cost of acquisition per vote in America. That's it. Simple as that. How do they choose candidates? They choose candidates based on how much money they can bring to the campaign. That's it.
Yeah, and then you can do the math.
All right. Well, I think we should call it there. Diego, thanks so much for coming. As always, we won't leave you on unread. Just don't message me on Twitter.
Yeah, it's you. It's really you, Bills. You're the problem.
And I promise not to reimburse any patrons you lose because of having me.
Oh, so you owe me at least $5. We'll see after this episode how many.
You son of a bitch. You're probably going to lose a lot of patrons for having me this time. I'm much more controversial now than I was last time I came on.
I feel like last time you came on, patrons liked Diego, I think.
I don't think we have very many liberals that would be offended by anything you say.
No, I'm the one who gets shit for being too lib in there most of the time. At least that's the Discord though. You should come into the Discord.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will come into the Discord. Maybe that sounds fun.
We have our own filter bubble. That's just the inverse.
Our own spiral of silence.
Yeah, exactly. I have some good arguments.
I think you'd be definitely okay in there, Diego. We, at some points in our past, we have had very clutchy leftists. No, but I think they've kind of they've moved on to their other things. Yeah,
I would like to have you guys on my Dungeons and Dragons show, because I have a show right now that is called LOL and Roll, and it's like we play Dungeons and Dragons with a couple of friends, but everything is more like comedy driven. Is the simplified rules of D&D.
Bro, I say immediate yes. Sign me up. I haven't played D&D in over a year.
Fuck yes.
I used to play a little bit of D&D with Pills here, but I never got into it.
He played a cat person.
You were a furry? Oh my God, you were a furry? Oh my God, no, please.
He was a tabaxi in his defense.
I'm afraid the next level of memocracy, it's going to be furry-driven politics. And we're going to choose between the cat person and the dog person and the
one of the stories
person.
About how some primary school installed litter boxes for the kids that were furries. or whatever. And like, it's pretty interesting to see like how, no, it's not true. That's literally never happened. But it was like the only story they could find was like one guy who they had a bucket. And the reason they had their bucket was actually for pretty dark reasons, was like, if there's a school shooting and they're trapped in the room, they need a bucket. It's like there for like, yeah.
Yeah, your dad is gonna say like, "Look, I found the truth."
Let's leave Victor's dad and his Facebook psyops out of it. He's been through enough. He's retired. He's settling down. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
I've been side up since I opened my YouTube channel. What are you talking about? Like I'm a clone of a hybrid between Deng Xiaoping and Lenin, and I was reimbursed with my cloning habits, and now I started a YouTube channel.
Have the Chinese ever been in touch with you?
Sorry, you got cut there.
Oh, I said, have the Chinese ever been in touch with you?
Again, I think I'm losing my connection here.
Actually, connection's completely fine here.
Oh, okay.
Run with that, bitches. All right.
Yeah, run.
Peace out, guys. Thanks a lot. I guess we're saluting, and no one can see that. All right. Just imagine us. We're saluting.
See ya.
Later.